Good morning, everyone. Yesterday, the sham impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas was defeated on the House floor in a victory for decency, democracy, and determination to put the American people's interests first and to put aside sham political stunts that has been the focus of this House Republican majority from the very beginning of this Congress. The American people deserve more common sense, less chaos, less confusion, and less cult like behavior. This is a period of divided government, which means common sense dictates that in order to get things done on behalf of the American people, Democrats and Republicans should be working together to find common ground in order to deliver real results for the American people on issues of importance like the economy, affordability, public safety, and national security. From the very beginning of this Congress, House Democrats have made clear that we are ready, willing, and able to find common ground with our Republican colleagues to advance bills in a bipartisan fashion that deliver real results for the American people. On the national security front, it's time to put the political stunts aside and to come together as Democrats and Republicans so we can support America's national security interests, our military readiness, along with our allies throughout the world, including Israel, Ukraine, and in the Indo-Pacific. It's my hope that that's exactly what will take place in the Senate and in a few days in the House of Representatives. Questions?
Feel though as though the impeachment of the office, this is just delayed temporarily. The idea that if they have Steve Scalise here next week, if they people, Democrats on the Democratic side don't have everybody here, if you have a few people who are out, if they win the special election in New York, this is just delayed for a bit. Obviously, we feel like what they're doing there, but this is going to be a fait accompli.
What does the impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas have to do with the economy? Nothing. What does the impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas have to do with addressing the affordability issues in the United States of America? Nothing. What does the impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas have to do with fixing our broken immigration system and addressing the challenges at the border? Absolutely nothing. It's incredible to me that instead of extreme MAGA Republicans pivoting to working with us in a common sense way to solve real problems for the American people, their focus is on how do we get Steve Scalise back to Washington so we can continue to do the bidding of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump and impeach Secretary Mayorkas. That tells you everything we need to know about this do nothing, chaotic, dysfunctional, and extreme Republican majority. It's not our responsibility to let House Republicans know which members will or will not be present on the House floor on any other day or in connection with any given vote.
And your relationship with Speaker Johnson, can you characterize it?
It's a functional relationship. I made clear to him that, as has been evidenced throughout the entirety of this Congress, that we are ready to work with them on any issue in a bipartisan way, but we're done with them playing political games.
We heard from the president yesterday at the White House saying that he would remind voters every day until November that it was Republicans who walked away from the border compromise reaching the Senate. Is that a similar approach you will take as the House Democratic leader on the campaign trail to looking at today?
The reality is that extreme MAGA Republicans have walked away from any effort to fix our broken immigration system or address the clear challenges that we have at the border. President Biden has made clear, Senate Democrats have made clear, House Democrats have made clear that we want to work together to address the challenges at the border. We need a strong border, a safe border, and a humane border. And we want to work together to make sure that we bring that about on behalf of the American people. What the extreme MAGA Republicans have chosen to do is to follow orders from Donald Trump, the puppet master, who has clearly instructed Republicans in the House and in the Senate to walk away from their own bipartisan border security bill. This is extraordinary. This is the height of cynicism. Once again, they are embracing chaos and walking away from common sense. So, yes, I think it's incumbent upon all of us in Washington, D.C. to make sure we are continuing to point out our willingness to work together with our Republican colleagues to solve the border issue, but to do it in a manner that channels common sense and runs away from the chaos that they apparently would like to continue to foster here in Congress, throughout the country.
On funding for Ukraine, if Speaker Johnson either says he won't bring funding for Ukraine forward to the floor, or if that fails, what do you see as the future viable step for getting funding for Ukraine through the House?
We need to move forward in the next few days upon our return to Washington early next week on a comprehensive national security legislative package that provides support for Israel, support for Ukraine, support for our allies in the Indo-Pacific, and provides humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians who are in harm's way in Gaza and others in war zones throughout the world who are in peril through no fault of their own. That's the only path forward. It's the one that has been articulated clearly by President Joe Biden, as well as has support from bipartisan majorities, we believe, in the House and in the Senate. We'll see what the Senate does in a few hours. But either way, here in the House of Representatives, the only way forward is for Democrats and Republicans to come together to meet the national security needs of the American people in a bipartisan fashion. And that is exactly what we are committed to do in the next few days. Kevin?
When it comes to Tuesday's election, to maybe ask an obvious question, how much did last night underline the importance of the result of Tuesday? And two, how much are you going to be reading into the results on Tuesday as to what could happen?
Well, the special election on Tuesday is a race between Tom Suozzi and the Republican candidate who has embraced the most extreme positions on the other side of the aisle. Tom Suozzi is a common sense, get stuff done kind of public servant who has demonstrated that throughout his entire career. And that's the record and the vision that he's presenting to the people of Nassau County and Queens in advance of Tuesday. And we put it in their hands. As always, trust the judgment of the voters. And let's see what happens in the aftermath of the election as to what it all means.
Mr. Leader, you very articulately pointed out the dysfunction that exists now in Congress, but fundamentally it's led to nothing getting done. How concerned are you, given the current environment right now, that just the basic functions of government are not going to move forward here over the next couple of months? There's a long list of things that need to get done, including the funding of government. How much in danger are those priorities right now, given the current environment?
The lesson from yesterday's continued chaos, dysfunction, and extremism is that the Republican my way or the highway approach is not going to work. Period. Full stop. It's not going to work. And so when they have chosen to continue to embrace a my way or the highway approach, we see the disaster and the dysfunction that results. When my Republican colleagues have chosen to partner with Democrats in a bipartisan way, often led by Democrats, we are able to advance the ball for the American people. That's the lesson to be drawn from this Congress. Democrats were able to lead the effort in the House to make sure that we avoided a catastrophic default on our nation's debt that would have crashed the US economy. And we partnered with Republicans to get that done. Democrats have been able to repeatedly lead the effort to avoid a government shutdown and make sure that we are funding the government in a manner that meets the needs of the American people in terms of their health, their safety, and their economic well being. And Democrats, as recently as last week, were able to lead the effort in the House of Representatives and partner with Republicans to enact a tax package designed to improve the lives of the American people in terms of the child tax credit enhancement and the enhancement of the low income housing tax credit. When Republicans recognize that they are incapable of governing on their own, things happen. When Republicans choose a my way or the highway approach, as was the case in wasting time on the Mayorkas impeachment, they crash and burn.
Have you had any outreach or conversations from Republicans not in House leadership about, outreach about some kind of moving some kind of security supplemental like the one you described by discharge petition or any other movement?
Yeah, there are several Republicans who are not in leadership who have reached out to uh, my colleagues on the Democratic side here in the House to indicate a willingness to work together to advance a comprehensive national security package that meets the needs of Israel in a time of war, Ukraine, who are fighting for their lives in a brave and courageous fashion against brutal Russian aggression, as well as our allies in the Indo-Pacific, like Japan and South Korea, who are dealing with the threat of China and North Korea, and of course provides humanitarian assistance to civilians who are in harm's way. There are Republicans, we believe, who have increasingly recognized that the my way or the highway approach of MAGA extremists is not working. But at the same time, one of the top Republican priorities apparently is now advancing a resolution led by Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, and Elise Stefanik that is designed to allegedly exonerate Donald Trump from the events of January 6th and the violent insurrection. This is what they're focused on. With all of the challenges facing the American people, House Republican leadership, apparently once again directed by Donald Trump, has chosen to focus their energies not on the economy, not on public safety, not on the border, not on America's national security interests, but on trying to exonerate Donald Trump. You can't make this stuff up. And the American people increasingly have shown that they've concluded that this is a do-nothing Republican Congress not acting in America's best interest. Well, in the House, we're going to continue to have conversations within the Democratic caucus about ways that we can, in a more comprehensive fashion, fix our broken immigration system and address the clear and present challenges that exist on the border. Over the last few weeks, we have been convening in an informal way with stakeholders all across the House Democratic caucus to discuss a path forward to address the challenges at the border. And now it's clear that we're going to have to accelerate those conversations in partnership with President Biden, the administration, and Senate Democrats, because we actually want to solve the problem. Republicans have been ordered by Donald Trump not to solve the challenges at the border, but to continue to play political games because they want to use the border as an electoral issue in November, and that's going to backfire. The Republicans thought they set a border trap for Democrats, and they fell into it themselves.
On the report A piece on the national security piece, just to clarify, does that mean that you support the Senate bill now that the border language is out of it? Or is not so far
I would like to review the legislative effort that will now be before the Senate in the next few hours, but in principle, it's certainly something that I support because we have to move forward in a comprehensive way to address our national security issues after extreme MAGA Republicans have held our national security issues hostage around the border for months and now have abandoned their own position.
If you could just speak a little bit to kind of the vote yesterday, both really high profile messaging priorities for the GOP leadership, Israel. Uh, could you speak a little bit to managing the coalition? What do you see as the problem? You're a leader of a coalition, and you studied under perhaps one of the greatest coalition leaders in modern history, Nancy Pelosi. What do you see from the outside looking in? Give us a little bit of a diagnostic.
Well, correction, the greatest legislative leader in our view uh, in American political history, and that continues to be proven over and over and over again by the Republican dysfunction. Under House Democrats, we had the same exact margins in the last Congress, the same exact margins. Republicans have produced chaos, dysfunction, and extremism under the same margins under the leadership of Speaker Pelosi. We produced the American Rescue Plan, shots in arms, money in pockets, kids back in school, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which will create millions of good paying jobs and clean water in every single community, gun safety legislation for the first time in 30 years that will save lives, the Chips and Science Act to bring domestic manufacturing jobs back home to the United States of America, and the Inflation Reduction Act, the largest investment in combating the climate crisis in the history of the world, setting our planet on a sustainable trajectory forward, strengthening the Affordable Care Act, and driving down the high price of life-saving prescription drugs for millions of Americans, including taking the price of insulin from $4,000 a year to $35 a month. Democrats under the leadership of President Biden and Speaker Pelosi, partnering with Senate colleagues, were able to do all that with the same exact margin that Republicans have right now. As House Democrats, we actually care about governing. That's the difference. We are here to serve the American people, to get things done, to fix problems that the American people are facing, to put people over politics. And we're going to continue to fight for lower costs, to grow the middle class, to defend democracy, for reproductive freedom, and for safer communities. And in that quest, we will always have exuberant conversations with each other. We don't run away from that. We embrace it. But then at the end of the day, what we do on our side is to exercise common sense and find the highest common denominator so we can advance the ball for the American people and then live to fight another day with respect to what has been left behind. That's our approach. And it has worked for the American people. And this my way or the highway approach by the extreme MAGA Republicans is failing the American people.
Just curious.
Then I'll get to you.
Did you directly appeal to Congressman Green to leave his hospital bed tonight?
Al Green is a great American, a great patriot, and a great public servant. He has told his story directly, and he made it clear to me that it was important for him to be present to cast a vote against this sham impeachment led by Marjorie Taylor Greene, targeting a hard-working public servant like Secretary Mayorkas. Last question.
You know, there's a growing push both in Congress and on the campaign trail for a constitutional amendment to term limits. Is that something you would support for the Democratic conference?
We haven't had that conversation, but there are term limits that are in place pursuant to the United States Constitution. It's every 2 years. Not 4 years like the presidency, 6 years like the United States Senate, or life tenure like Article 3 federal judges. The House has to face the American people, all 435 of us, every 2 years to make the case to have your employment contract renewed. And that was an intentional decision by the framers to make sure that the House was the institution closest to the American people. And as Democrats, we're just going to continue to do our best in that regard to put people over politics. Thank you.